Welcome back to the Roundup, where today I've got a bunch of crazy stories. Blizzard released a trailer that was, in fact, so, wrong that they had to pull it. That was rather funny. Diablo 4 Season 2, the Blood one, is out. The game's also on Steam. There's quite a lot to talk about there. We have got the whole, AMD situation, with AMD having to pull graphics card drivers because they would just lead to a VAC ban on Steam, which is kind of mad. And the indie dev who has actually cut their microtransaction in-game monetization. A move that they somehow can afford and are happy with, which is fairly awesome. And if you can afford and it makes sense, the best way to support our show right now is to pick up the Pale Beyond art book. This is the art and the making of the Pale Beyond, which is our first video game. This is a proper big, nice, collectible, goes on your shelf hardback art book at store.bellular.games. The best way to support the team who make this content for you. And of course, you can check out the game itself on Steam. That being said, let's talk about the Diablo 4 seasonal launch. Right. D4 came out in Steam. That's kind of the big news. There was a slight delay to the seasonal launch. There was some sort of, problem, but the results are actually rather fascinating. And that's because we had a peak of 2,362 concurrent players. That is a number that is bested by a great many games, including many indie titles. You might be thinking, oh boy, that is really pretty low for Blizzard. Well, there's a bit of color to that. Also, we've got 58% as our Steam average right now, which, to be honest, is becoming what we can expect from a big AAA, kind of like quite microtransaction heavy title. Again, with D4, it doesn't have microtransactions that impact gameplay in any way, but for a lot of people, they don't like how expensive those transactions are. There more microtransactions? Hey, do you want some horse armor that's the cost of a full bloody game? I mean, take our game, The Pale Beyond. You can have that, 10 hours of content, or you can have, a horse trophy. Yeah, the games industry is pretty damn weird. As an example, take Call of Duty, right? Massive franchise, gets humongous sales, also from Activision Blizzard, and, of course, it's currently being Fortnite-ified, as I've covered on the show. You can see Call of Duty's at a 56%, so these mixed releases are very much the norm, and so much of it just comes down to, I think, a lot of player sentiment just being kind of sick of stuff. And specifically in the case of Diablo 4, being a little bit unhappy with the launch and stuff like that. However, as I did cover in a recent video, there are baseline quality of life changes to this game that are significantly better. The thing that actually matters the most to me in terms of the gameplay experience is that leveling through the open world experience, doing your whispers, doing your hell tides and all that actually is far more rewarded in this new season. I think that is an absolutely major, potentially killer thing, because previously D4 said, hey, look at this big world we've made with stuff in it, little side quests and stories and gorgeous art, and then it just funneled you through turbo dungeons, which of course you still can do. It will be efficient, but between the changes to the leveling, the quality of life stuff, and this season being a genuine step up over the first season, yeah, it is significantly better as a game. Am I going to say it's suddenly like an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10? No, for me it's probably like a 7.5 out of 10. Maybe it will achieve that kind of 8, 8.5, sort of 9 out of 10 status with its first big expansion pack. Of course, what's in my head right now is the transition process from Diablo 3 to Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls, which, came in and made it a hell of a lot better. Now, to go to those Steam numbers, look, D4 is a paid game. You cannot just, go and install it and become a Steam user number, unlike, say, with Overwatch. And looking at Overwatch and SteamDB, we do in fact see 14,900 players in-game. And that's with a peak of 75,000. But again, as you can see, Diablo 4 was never going to go anywhere near that peak because it costs money, quite a lot of money, and the Diablo audience will, of course, have that game on Battle.net anyway. As an example, it's probably where they have Diablo 2 Resurrected, right? And, all of that. The next bit of data, though, is fascinating. So, Steam top sellers, that chart that you see on Steam when you open it up, that is not based on unit sales. That's actually based on the revenue. And when you look at the revenue, you can see Counter-Strike 2 is top, Diablo 4 is second, and then you've got Apex Legends. And then 14 hours after launch, you see Apex Legends pop up ahead of it. Now, I bring that up because you might be thinking, Apex Legends, that's free. How did it suddenly generate all of this revenue? So Apex Legends had a new cosmetic event that came out that boosted its revenue ahead of Diablo 4. You might also be wondering, how is Battlefield 2042 there when it's, selling for $7.99 instead of like 84% off instead of like 45 quid, $50, $60, something like that. Well, I definitely want to talk about Battlefield. I've noticed a lot of the Battlefield YouTubers are beginning to turn around on it, and it seems that under the direction of Vince Zampella, they've not abandoned the game. What I really want to see, though, is will the next year of content actually be confirmed? The reason I bring this up, though, is because Apex Legends did some cosmetics, and it beat the Steam release of Diablo 4. And this is why I left a note to myself in this document. This is why game cosmetics are a thing. Now, it would be a false equivalency to say, oh yeah, you can make Diablo 4, or you can make a few skins. Like, that is not really true. But the point is, once you actually have built that ongoing platform, you can then absolutely rinse the shit out of it via skins in the same way that you look at Apex here and it's able to be near the top of Steam. Same with CS2 as well, just off the back of cosmetics. Of course, you can see Call of Duty is there, again, just off the back of cosmetics. And that's Call of Duty with its Steam release. Of course, remember, so much of its active install base will have been playing on Battle.net. Point here is basically cosmetics are absolutely insane. But hey, it's still nice to see that Baldur's Gate 3 is sitting there happy. Overall then, the launch of this and Season 2 is not really a negative thing. Steam has not been a particularly large launch, but again, versus Overwatch 2, it's not free to play. Broadly speaking, the narrative of Diablo 4 for the more engaged people who actively want to play Diablo 4 and maybe just felt like they couldn't because Season 1 wasn't good enough, for a lot of them, it now will be more of an experience that's actually worth their attention. But to people who are more sort of profoundly let down by the seasonal experience or even the game itself, this absolutely is not going to be enough to change your mind. Probably wouldn't be enough to change my mind and make me play it a hell of a lot. For me, I would really be waiting to see what the next expansion is, where we can actually see far, far, far like larger, maybe innovations to the core gameplay. Because at the end of the day, so much of the Diablo 4 development time will have just been spent building the basics of this world. And while that's all good, at the end of the day, I think it's gameplay innovation that D4 struggles with a little bit more. But apparently not all. Look, there was a situation with a trailer for the new season that absolutely got clowned on. It was really funny. A Diablo content creator watched the teaser and he just, like, you see it all just dawn on him how everything is wrong. So, as an example, they've got this, you can see the graphic right now. It says 1000 XP times a 40% bonus when, what should that be? Should it be like an addition, 1040? Should it be 1400? There's many different examples of that. And the Season 2 example is basically 1.2 times 1.2, which should be 1.44x, overall. So instead of showing 1400 XP, it should be showing 1440. And then, right, they show the mount speed increase, but because the camera is locked on the player, you can't, like, unless you were to, compare the relative movement of trees, there's no way of telling, right? Now, you may be wondering, like, does this mean the devs don't care anything like that with Diablo? I will say this, right? So, video editing, I started off as an editor. I work with editors. The way that it often goes is an editor gets a project, they get some footage or have to quite quickly grab it, and they are just kind of putting the things together on the timeline, right? The person doing the editing may not be 100% up to date with all the little minutiae of the actual trailer. They could just be handed a project, said, hey, here's the deal, here's a brief doc, away you go. The problem here is not really the editor's fault, it's not the developer's fault, it is just a fault of internal process where this should have been caught in QA. Evidently, they did not do internal QA that absolutely should have seen this, which is quite the issue. Okay, next story then. Thankfully, moving away from D4, because I know that sometimes you're talking about the sort of the comings and goings of the games industry. It's just, hello, welcome to the Blizzard show, where there's shit shows all the time. But now we're going to talk about a bit of a problem with Valve. So AMD's latest 23.10.1 driver came out with the RDNA 3 line of products, and it adds anti-lag plus. This says, and I'll just read their own copy, it will apply frame alignment within the game code itself, allowing for better frame syncing compared to the regular anti-lag tech, which controls the CPU pace to ensure parity with the GPU. So basically, in theory, you can turn this feature on and get better performance for your games, right? Less latency, which is a really cool feature. Problem is, though, it's kind of reaching into the guts of the game and shimmying things around. And if you are, say, Valve's anti-cheat system, you may be rather worried about this. And this meant that loads of people downloaded these drivers and then got banned. And this led to the funny tweet where Counter-Strike's Twitter basically said, do not enable this. Do not use this. This was far less Valve being like, this is a cheat or anything like that. It's more that it will trigger how Valve anti-cheat works. And they say that once AMD ships an update, they can do the work of identifying impacted users and reversing their ban. So basically, this is all of Valve systems working as intended, AMD's performance enhancements working as intended, and these things not being natural allies. Not that it's even a big cheating problem or anything like that, it's just how the implementation works. AMD themselves do list a bunch of games, and you can see that, yeah, CS2 is not there. That being said, they have just yanked this, so I imagine they're going to do something to rectify this problem. Next then, a story that is certainly something that we like to see. So, 6 months after launching early access, the indie developer Shiny Shoe are actually stripping microtransactions out of their new game. To give you the context here, they released a game called Monster Train in 2020, right? It was one of a swath of card-based roguelites like, say, Slay the Spire. It had the twist, though, of multiple combat channels and an option for multiplayer, and this game did really, really well. You can see that they published it with Good Shepherd Entertainment. If you're dealing with 16,000 reviews overall, I mean, industry logic says, you know, multiply the review number by like 25 to 50 maybe, and you can kind of get a ballpark of how many copies. So this is an absolutely fantastic success. That being said, decently significant amount of that money will go, of course, to Mr. Gabe and Valve. Some of that will go into taxes, of course, you know, go to the publisher, etc. So it's not like the dev is going to be absolutely, you know, swimming in infinite money forever. But what it has meant is they have felt comfortable moving to self-publishing for their next game, which is this, Inkbound. It's self-published, right? Went into early access. It's a turn-based tactical action roguelite, and you can see it's got 1,000 reviews on Steam. Certainly less, but again, this game has been out for significantly less time. It's still in early access. It hasn't benefited from as many large sales periods, and I can tell you for a fact, even looking at the Steam data of our own game, you see those Steam sales? Oh boy, they really do get you a lot more players and a hell of a lot more visibility. Now then, here is the way that things worked. At launch, they thought the best way to support this business model was basically with a leveling pass and a cosmetic shop, where the rules were this: 100% optional, cosmetic only, with no impact in gameplay and with no fear of missing out. So as far as these systems go, pretty much the gold standard. I actually noticed in the recent promotional graphics for one of the Halo Infinite seasons, they actually have the, like, you know, no expiring or whatever under the Battle Pass. I think that is something they've done for Halo Infinite that just needs to be standard across the industry. The idea that a company will sell you like a temporary access thing, to me, that just feels quite bad. Specifically, it feels really goddamn meaningless. And you may say, well, hey, if you buy a ticket to go into a theme park, you don't get to ride every single ride, or, you know, you don't ride half the rides and then have half your ticket price magically be refunded. I'd say, yeah, well, sure, that's a physical theme park. It is sort of there in the real world. This is in the digital world. All you're really doing is saying, these assets in the game files on our user's computer, do they have access to it? Yes or no? That's all that it is. So to have that be something, the unlock of which is based on FOMO, I think is absolutely horrible. So even the way they were doing this was the way to do it. That being said, this is what they had to say. It is clear that industry and player sentiment is trending against the presence of these features. For that reason, we are removing in-game monetization completely. Content from the existing leveling passes will be turned into cosmetic-only, optional, sort of a supporter pack DLC in Steam. The rest of it will be available in-game and earned via playing, which overall is a pretty damn strong pitch. Feels good. It's nice. Now, of course, if you're a AAA developer, this is going to mean turning off a revenue stream, which, you know, I don't think they're going to be doing. Now, in terms of fairness, anyone who did pay for anything in-game will be refunded in in-game currency, and going forward, they're going to make the leveling rewards from each season appear in an ever-growing vault. Now, of course, this game is not out yet. This isn't some sort of like marketing beat to tie into the launch of the game. Somebody said, you know, what's the catch? Another person said, nothing. They just noticed the reputation trade-off isn't worth alienating players. Keep up the good work. That's absolutely true. I would also say, man, there's an upkeep. If you commit to doing a battle pass, how much staff time do you have to spend making Battle Pass content? The answer is a hell of a lot of staff time, and that is Battle Pass content that, of course, is maybe thrown into the vault in 9 weeks, as an example, if you're Overwatch 2. And that just means that the baseline that you need to maintain your business model is really high. And that's why, you look at Season 6 of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the second, brackets, not the remaster, because we live in hell. And you see there are so many cosmetics to the point where they're essentially like, as a marketing beat, being like, Season 6 Battle Pass cosmetics. Here's all our bundles. Here's the Battle Pass. Get hype, gamers. And you just think like, man, I get why you have thousands of people working in this franchise. You just need to make so much goddamn content. And you start thinking like, man, back in the day, we used to look at, say, a railway simulator game, right? With all the different skins, all the different, locales, all the different like carriages and stuff. And think, whoa, look how deeply monetized that niche fan base is. Now, what? You can be Lilith or a paranormal investigator. Like, I cannot wait until we get Call of Duty X Zach Baggins, get some Ghost Adventure shit going on. Man, we do live in crazy times. Finally then, Pete Hines is retiring. Another executive leaving in gaming. This is potentially a bit less impactful than, say, with Jim Ryan or Bobby Kotick as the heads of those massive companies. But yes, Pete Hines was essentially the public face of Bethesda. He was there for 24 years. Most recently, his position was head of publishing. And this week, he announced that he is retiring and will be exploring a new chapter of his life for his interests and passions, donating time, and that kind of thing. Basically, he said, there you go. It's time for me to move on, do some other things. Thanks, his team. But yes, it certainly does mean that one of the names and faces that goes around the industry, that is sort of always in the news cycle, always there in big industry interviews, is now gone. But such is the march of time. A march of time that has now led us to the end of this video. Of course, you can check out what we published yesterday on the channel, and if you would like to support the team that brings you this content, you can pick up the Pale Beyond, which now is in stock for speedy shipping. Big thank you for all of your support. With that said, I'll see you next time.